Hey guys, today I want to talk about 6 reading habits that will ruin your life. This is part 2 of a video that I posted last week about 6 habits that will change your life. And this is basically the antithesis of all of those. So if you haven't seen that video, I'll link it up around here. Definitely go and check that out. But in that video, what we talked about is that there's 3 lives of the reader. This comes from a book called Reader Come Home by Mary Ann Wolfe. And the first life that she talks about is this reading life where we're gathering information and acquiring knowledge. And it's just to gain the stuff that we need to know for whatever reason. And then the second life of the reader is this life where we read to escape and to be immersed in a story, whether that story is fictional or non-fictional, and we're reading a biography of someone's life or whatever. It doesn't really matter. It's just this life where we're reading to be transported to a different place and a different time and something other than this life and the here now that I have to deal with. And then the third life that she talks about is the reflective life. And that's this life where, regardless of if we're reading to acquire knowledge and gather information, or if we're reading to be immersed in a different life other than our own, we're doing it in such a way that we're trying to deeply engage with the thing that we're reading. We're trying to understand it, to synthesize it, to break it down and put it back together and integrate it into wisdom that actually then goes to change the life that we're living in the here and now. So in that previous video, we talked about the habits that will change your life are the ones that keep you consistently in that third level of the reading life, that reflective reading life. In this video, the habits that are going to ruin your life are the ones that are going to keep you only in those first 2 levels and prevent you from going to that third level of reflective, deep reading. So without any further ado, here we go. The first one that we're going to talk about is reading less. The truth of the matter is, if you want to guarantee that you start thinking less, just start reading less. Like we talked about in that first video, the neural pathways that are required for deep reading are these neural pathways of critical analysis, reflection, and empathy. And the thing that science is teaching us now is that these don't exist in your brain by default. They're not hardwired into your brain. And so in order to develop them, and then in order to keep them, you have to do deep reading. And so if you want to ruin your life, just stop doing any deep reading. And as you do that, those pathways will get used less and less and less, and eventually they'll just disintegrate. Then the second thing that you can do to ruin your life is reading garbage books, right? And there's a principle in computing that we talk about all the time, which is garbage in and garbage out. If you are reading a book that doesn't have anything good to offer, you're not going to get anything good out of it. And so if you want to ruin your life, just keep picking books that don't have any redeeming qualities to them, that they're not teaching good lessons. They're not bringing up good questions. They're not exemplifying truth or beauty in any way. And if that's what you read, you will guaranteed ruin your life because of it eventually, because you cannot take all that in without exuding it back out. And no one wants to be around someone who is exuding out those things. The third habit we get into with reading that will ruin our life is ignoring great stories. And this ties in a lot with that second habit, but specifically I want to talk about stories, because so many people, what we do is we only read the latest and greatest, newest thing, right? And the thing that Mary Ann talks about, what she calls the digital chain hypothesis, is essentially that reading in a digital world has changed how we read, which has changed what we read, which has changed why we read, which has changed how things are written. And so what you find is that when you look across the broad spectrum of stories that are coming out nowadays versus what people would consider to be classics, they are incredibly dumbed down. They are incredibly shortened. All the fat has been trimmed off of them. And it's just the facts, please. And just the points that you need to know to get the story. So I had this conversation with my brother the other day, and I brought up the idea of like the Lord of the Rings, right? Like if I just tell you, oh yeah, okay, here's a story. There was a bad guy and he made a ring that controlled all the other rings, and then this little hobbit dude got the ring and he had to take it to a volcano to throw it in, and then he kind of had some problems getting there, and they almost died and didn't quite make it. And there was a little monster thing that was like chasing him, and then the monster thing bit his finger off, and then it fell, but that put the ring in the fire, and then they defeated the bad guy, and then everybody went home. If I did that though, would you know Lord of the Rings? Would you know the story of Lord of the Rings the same way as you know the story of Lord of the Rings if you watched all of the movies, or even better, if you read all of the books, right? And it's like, well, no, obviously not, because the details are what make the story great. And so one of the worst habits you can get into is ignoring stories that are filled more with details, and looking further back and looking at some of these classics and looking at books that have been changing people's lives for decades, if not centuries, and engaging with those, and instead choosing just to read things that are just fluff and easy and don't have all of these details that you have to bog your way, to get bogged down in, and then you have to slog your way through. And the fourth habit that will ruin your life if you read this way is staying on the surface. And you can do this either by the books that you choose to read. You just never choose to read anything that, gets really down into something, or in the way that you choose to read them, right? So this is reading without a pen, reading without really thinking about stuff, reading without writing anything about it, and just reading and, okay, cool, I got done, move on to the next one. Okay, cool, I got done, move on to the next one, right? And so even if you are reading, better books, you can read them in a way that you don't get anything out of them. You just get the check mark, in the Goodreads count of, oh yeah, I've read that. You're not digging in and reinforcing those neural pathways of critical analysis, empathy, and reflection. And so you are going to lose the ability to do those things, and it will ruin your life. The fifth habit is going to be reading in a bubble. And the fact of the matter is that echo chambers never allowed anyone to hear something new. If you're stuck in an echo chamber, all you hear is that original voice that came out of you. You never hear anything else. You never learn anything new. You never get a fresh perspective. All you ever hear is just a regurgitation of the same thing over and over and over again. And if you do that, you'll never be exposed to new information. And if you're never exposed to new information, you never get an opportunity to change your mind. And if you never change your mind, you will ruin your life, because your life is constantly changing, and you need to constantly be growing and evolving your understanding as your life changes and as the world around you changes in order to live a good life. Finally, the last habit that will ruin your life if you read this way is staying quiet. And this is just this idea of, if you never try to explain something, then you never fully learn it. One of the final tests of do you really know something is, can you explain it to someone else in a way that they understand? Right? So if you never practice that, if you never talk about the thing that you read, if you never write about the thing that you read, if you never discuss it with someone else who read the same thing, it'll just be knowledge, and then eventually it'll fade away. And as it fades away, again, all those neural pathways are going to fade away. And every single time, if you lose the ability to do critical analysis, to have empathy, and to reflect on things, your life will be ruined, period. So these are the things to be aware of. Don't let these habits become habits that keep you in that first and that second level of the reading life. Push yourself to develop the habits that keep you consistently in that third level of the reading life, and your life will be so much better off for it. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you thought. Let me know which one of these you struggle with. Mine, for a long time, one of my biggest struggles has been reading in a bubble. I've been intentionally trying to seek out things that are just the polar opposite of what I would normally read in order to understand more of my own thinking and more of why other people think the way that they do. And so that's been a big one for me. That's what I'm really trying to work on this year. So yeah, let me know. Let me know what you guys struggle with. And yeah, I think that's all I got for now. So I'll see you guys in the next one.